She's not doing this. Okay. Yeah, I think that's fine. Okay.
It is fine. All right. So I think that we'll give her a pass. All right. Okay, item 10.04, submissions. Are there any submissions to the board?
Yes, we have a submission by Compass Charter Schools. We have Mr. J.J. Lewis, who's the superintendent and CEO of Compass, and they are submitting their renewal petition to the board this evening.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. And the binders are making their way by. And if there's questions as you're reviewing the materials, of course, we'll be back in time for the public hearing in the new year. Hard to believe that we're so far away, but proud of our partnership and looking forward to participating in a public hearing in January and talking more about the Compass experience with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item 10.05, new construction, Mr. King.
So very little to report on new construction. The railings are due to start next week. We've been talking about those railings with the 2-inch adjustment to make them ADA compliant on the portables at AADUSD and at Acton. So that work should be done next week. And then that will be the last item to make us in compliance with the DSA issues that were out of compliance according to the A sheet. In terms of Vasquez High School, work's been completed on the concession building. The final cleanup on the ground is happening now. All the heavy equipment has been removed and the trailer's been removed. So now it's just a matter of waiting out the 90 days and making sure that the seed, the grass took, and if that's good to go, then we'll do the final walk on the punch list and we'll be all set with that part of phase 3.
Thank you. Item 10.06, superintendent safety.
Okay, in terms of the safety report, I'll start with the safe routes to schools. So there's nothing new to report in terms of specifically the safe routes to schools. However, I did attend the high-speed rail board meeting. Jackie was there with quite a crew, Jackie Air, and it was actually very interesting. I think based on my conversation with other folks from Acton, AADUSD area, it seems to be that may have been the most impactful meeting in terms of folks that got up and spoke. I spoke on behalf of the district. Jackie had it really well laid out and organized because it was very important for them to understand that if you're going to go through our area within 1,500 feet of the high school, that you go subterranean, that you go tunnel. And so we made I think a pretty strong, impactful argument for that. And to that end, the board, the High-Speed Commission Board, has ordered a detailed noise study, in particular to assess the noise impacts on rural communities. They articulated the use of tunneling to avoid noise impacts, and they recognize the obligation to report actual noise levels that would occur each time a train passes, and not merely a 24-hour average noise level. Because one of the things that I learned through the study that Jackie shared with me is that you're talking about 22 times an hour that this train will be passing by the high school. And that's significant. And when you look at the decibel levels, there's a significant impact potentially on the classrooms and student learning. I started looking up studies on the impact of noise to students in the classroom, and it's pretty significant. So even low levels of noise that happen in a classroom can impact some students. So if you're talking about, and this is a different type of noise, when they talk about putting up protectors, noise barriers, those don't work when you're talking about a high-speed object. So they work on freeways when you have walls there, when cars are going 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, it works. But the frequency that's created by a train moving at 180 or 200 miles an hour is a completely different frequency. And I'm not coming close to the education that Jackie gave me, but your engineer mind is pretty amazing. But anyhow, so that's the update on that piece. In terms of traffic, a request was submitted to the County Public Works to consider traffic modifications to enhance access to and from Red Rover Line Road. This would improve transit to and from Vasquez High School. A preliminary response from Public Works indicates they've not found that changes are warranted at this time. And then for the district safety report, our next safety committee meeting being headed up by our high school principal, Mr. Dan Andrus, will be on January 16th at the district office from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Mr. Fox, if you'd like to have any board representation, even on an intermittent basis, you're always welcome to have that. We invite you at any time to stop by our safety committee meetings and to see how those operate. We sent the counselor to a threat assessment training, and we'll be developing a threat assessment plan that coordinates with the sheriff's plan. New requirements for the safety plan required to consult with both the fire department and the sheriff's department. They must include a tactical response plan, which is to be discussed with the board in closed session. So we don't have a date for that as of this time, but we will, and we'll present that to you in closed session once the plan is put together. By July 1st, we need to have AED devices, the defibrillators, on campus and written into the plan, and to provide staff training as well. It must include a bioterrorism response plan as well. We'll work with the committee to update the plan and to meet all requirements. January 23rd, just to let you know, ALICE training for parents and community members will be in the Vasquez High School gym. And that concludes the safety report. The ALICE training is January 23rd.
I have a quick question. The musts and the requirements that we're complying with, is that a new state law that's been enacted that has us addressing these at this point in time?
Can you speak to that?
Yeah,
James?
so I went down to the LACO training where they went through the new laws and the new requirements for the safety plans, and that's where that list of things that we need to add came from. A couple of them were last year that didn't quite get in there, but most of those are this year. New requirements from the state.
I mean, it's all good stuff. I was just wondering, why now? Is it because the law was changed, or because we missed it last year? It's a little bit of a mixed bag, but we're getting it all in now. And,
Right.
And I appreciate your ensuring that happens and participating in that. All right, that was my one question. On that one, okay, that brings us to your superintendent report, 10.07. Anything there?
I do have quite a few things on the superintendent's report. Many of them are brief, but I'd like to start with a moment of silence for Andrew Jacobson, who was a 14-year-old student that passed away during Thanksgiving. And I know all of our hearts go out to any young person that, in terms of loss of life. So if we could just take a moment. Celebration of life last Saturday was tremendous in terms of how this community comes together, and it is a true sign of the spirit of this community. And Mr. Andrus worked with Dr. Bice in coordinating many of the logistics and setting up your high school gym with parents helping out, staff helping out. When I saw all the familiar faces there, it's tremendous the impact that this young man had on so many lives. His family was a true pleasure to meet, and I just can't imagine as a parent myself that loss. And, so I don't know what else to say about it except that I was really struck by the community, the way it came together on that Saturday. So thank you for putting all that together and making it a very special event. I know the family appreciated that and they shared it. And board, thank you. The family did extend their thanks and appreciation for making our facility available without even a hesitation. So as soon as Yolanda contacted me, I didn't even hesitate to say, absolutely, we'll work with you and make that facility available. So thank you. In the spirit of thanking the board, I want to thank you for your continued professional development. So we attended California School Board Association training on 28th and 29th of last month. It was a Thursday, Friday, half-day Saturday, and 3 board members went last year. We had 3 board members go this year. Mike Fox, Ed Porter, and Tim Jorgenson was able to join us as a new board member, and tremendous, the training and opportunities that come out of that, and perhaps you can share other comments maybe during board comments, but thank you for making the time to go. You're all working except for Mr. Jorgenson, who works on what he wants to when he wants to. So thank you for making the time to do that. I want to let you know that we've been working with the Wolf Connection. If you remember, we had Teo here talking about the Wolf Connection. He's the founder of the Wolf Connection. They've never worked with Acton before. It's a tremendous opportunity for the school district. At no cost to the district, they hosted the first in service. They had cabinet go through kind of what happens when students will go through their program, what they can do for staff in terms of training, mindfulness practices. They took us on the medicine wheel, sort of a Native American practice, and showed what they do with students and adults in terms of reflecting on your own life. You know, what would you say to yourself as an 18-year-old or a 30-year-old or a 50-year-old? What advice would you give to yourself? And we were kind of brainstorming ways that this could even be incorporated with both PBIS. That's something we're looking at implementing over the course of the next 3 years. So that was a great experience. You heard this evening, and again last week, they were just tremendous. I don't know if you got to a Thursday or Friday. I think some of you did. They were absolutely just fabulous. Mr. Rudolph has been busy for the past 3 nights doing the winter concerts. Monday night at the middle school, which is a first. So Dr. Bice, thank you for working with Mr. Rudolph and making that happen. That's huge for our middle school students. And then Tuesday and Wednesday night, they performed at the elementary school. And I believe Dee ended up through some negotiation with Dr. Cooper, being the winner of Mr. Pfalzgraf's cigar box purse. so congratulations on that. And so that was just good fun and good community again, and great job by Mr. Rudolph and our teachers for organizing all of that. I have a letter from Mr. Rowland that I'm going to share with the board. I won't read it because it's going to be in the Country Journal, I believe, this weekend. The letter from Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Okay, so so this will give the motivation as a cliffhanger to read the Country Journal this weekend. It's a fabulous letter from Mr. Rowland. He just does such an amazing job with our students on handbells, and if I can continue to work on my trumpet chops maybe a little bit more, he's arranged a piece for me to play with the students in handbells in the spring. So I look forward to that piece. I have a copy of it, thank goodness, several months ahead of time, because it's a little bit more challenging than the Frosty the Snowman or whatever that was I played last night. So Holly Jelly, thank you. So anyhow, so I look forward to that. But he just is a great heart, great man, doing such a nice job with our students on the handbells. Just real quick, there's a handout on the Trial of Santa. So, board, I just want to let you know that the Trial of Santa will be December 19th at 6 p.m. The admission is free. This is being performed by High Desert Drama Club. And the very last thing is we have a video. We're way past fall. We don't have a staple video for tonight, but we do have a video of the Fall Festival. Did I get you off guard?
While she's bringing it up, I do have a quick question for you. So I know it's required that we report out on our field trip to CSBA. Is there a timeline for when that reporting must complete? Because at least in my own case, I'll defer till next week since the agenda's next meeting, since the agenda's pretty full. Is there a timeline for when we can do it?
There's no specific timeline. I think anything within the 60 days of coming back from the conference.
So you guys can decide as you like, but with everything going on tonight, I'll just wait.
Carnival, where spooky and kooky fun was never in short supply. From delicious food, served with a smile, to to sweet treats and sugary baked goods. Entertainment in the form of live performances. Scary good games. Local vendors. A raffle and silent auction. And so much more. It's no wonder everyone was able to get into the fall spirit.
Hey, this is an awesome fall festival. You guys did an amazing job. Our students are awesome, our staff, and it's a beautiful day out here. This is great. Thank you. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Okay, very good. We will move on to 10.08 board member comments, and we'll just go down the road. Would you like to start, Mr. Warren?
No comments. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Mr. Jorgensen?
Well, I have a couple. I want to congratulate Kelly and Ken and Ed for being reelected, and I want to thank the community for voting some confidence in me to come and join the board. I'm going to do my best to bring forward whatever I can to be a team player and make sure I look out for the student interest, because that's where my focus has been. I enjoyed 18 years at Vasquez, and now I've got a couple of more years to continue here, and I'm going to get to know Dan really well. He knows it already. But I've already had a couple opportunities to talk with the superintendent. I want to thank Larry for getting me prepped and ready. He did a great job, and I had a lot of questions, and he goes scratching his head thinking, okay, this is great. Great appreciation to Yolanda too. She overcame my fact that I accidentally blocked her, so you're not blocked anymore. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be something like I told Larry when we went to CSBA. It's just like a dry sponge. I'm just absorbing and learning as much as I can, as quick as I can. So now in my first board meeting, I'm a damn sponge. I've already learned something, and so now I don't have so much more to go. I appreciate, I've had all the board members' children at the school at Vasquez, so I feel right at home. And I'm looking forward to a good 2 years. I thank the community again for their confidence.
Mr. Pfalzgraf?
First, PTSO at the high school, thank you for everything. There's been a lot of events there, events of celebration and loss, and I don't think any of those events would have gone the way they did without your help. When we moved students to from Meadowlark to High Desert, I expressed a concern that some of the programs that would go there would continue, and I'm definitely very happy that the ASMO program actually had their Christmas concert at High Desert. That was very significant to me, and it speaks to there was a lot of concern and apprehension about kids moving, and that was kind of a culmination of, we haven't heard of a lot of problems there, and it personally felt good for me to see that moving through the system, and it is an indicator to me that beyond math and English and the stuff that the small district supplies, that the community comes together and creates opportunities for the arts to go through for all of the students to be involved in. Associations, I want to thank you midway through the year. We've, again, with students moving to High Desert, I thank you for the support you've given everyone. I know that there's a new administration team. I know there's some new people coming on board, so I thank you for being there on the front lines of moving kids around, making them feel comfortable, and for welcoming new administration staff and working with them in a positive way. Ed, I'd like to say that during your time as president, I think the most significant thing you could do and did was your support of the social campus, social issues or initiatives in which Larry wants to provide a safe environment emotionally, educationally, and physically for the students. I think you were a champion of that. I think it was reflected in your comments. Everybody knows that a small school district, you have to have math and English, and beyond that, especially if the money's short, it all boils down to what the community is and whether the kids feel safe at school or not. So thank you for championing that during your presidency. And welcome aboard, Tim. I'm very happy to see you here. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Next.
Well, first of all, I'm glad November's over, quite honestly. But it's, I'm happy to be re-elected, but that was a long month. But, Tim, I'm happy to work with you again, and Ed and, Ken, thank you so much. And, I look forward to, having Mike as our president. That would be great. First of all, December's been great. Lots of performances. We have so many talented students. I was able to, attend the Crush Festival on December 2nd for the handbells, and that was, amazing. And I have to say, you know, it was great because in between each thing, he entertained the audience while the kids were getting their new bells, so that was wonderful. I went and heard the herd last Friday night. They were amazing. They did so many numbers, and the stage looked incredible, and that was great. And then I have to say to our administrators, it's been a lot of long evenings. As soon as the herd was over, we had everyone had to get ready for the celebration of life the next morning. So thank you for doing that. And then I was able to, I'm sorry for High Desert, I had a miss, I had another obligation, but I was able to go and attend the one at Meadowlark the other night, so that was great. I just want everyone in the community to recognize the great music program we have between the herd and ASMO. If you are involved in education at all, it's really hard to find some great music teachers, and we are so blessed to have that here in our community, so that's fabulous. And so just all the extra evenings, all the volunteers, all of our administrators are working these long hours, and I just want to thank everyone for that, so thank you.
First of all, congratulations once again, and Ed, thank you very much for your leadership last year. I think you made some nice improvements to governance of this meeting that I will carry forth. It's just a little bit way down there this week. It'll be up here next week or in 2 weeks. So thank you for your service. And since you're going to hear me so much with the meeting, I'll be very, very brief with my comments. I just want to note two things. First, I'd like to wish all of our students and their families and our staff and the public in general a very joyous holiday season. For those whose holiday was last week, the same gets extended to you. While most of us will be surrounded by family and probably in very happy circumstances, there's always those folks out there who are hurting or feeling lost at this time. I think we just learned of that. And so I'm going to make my best effort to try to help, to be on the lookout for that kind of thing and reach out and try to help provide some comfort to people who have experienced loss or sadness at this time of year, because not everybody has a good time of year this time of year. And then let's see, I did my congratulations, my happy holidays, and I'll report out on our conference at the June 15th meeting. So thank you, folks. Let's see. All right, now returning, moving on to item 11, which is the consent agenda.
I'm going to ask that the warrant register is pulled off, that we vote on 11.1 to 11.4. I'm going to ask that 4 items out of the warrant register be called up, and for me to abstain.
Okay,
Yes.
sure. So I'll second it. Okay, so we will now be voting on the consent agenda items 11.1 to 11.4, and we will separately discuss 11.5.
So just to get a vote on the record, so you have a first and a second.
Okay.
On 11.1 to 11.4.
Okay, call the question regarding the modification to the agenda.
Aye.
So that's a 5-0-0 on the modification. And just for record keeping, the mover was
Ken, and I second.
Thank you. All right, so now let's call to question the modified consent agenda, approval of it, which would be 11.1 to 11.4. Call to question?
Aye.
Okay, so the consent agenda as modified is unanimously carried. Now, let's move, could I have somebody move in the 11.05, the warrant register as a unique item?
I move in 11.5, Mr. President.
Okay,
I second.
thank you. Okay, any discussion on 11.05?
I'm going to ask that, 4 items, be called out. Those are namely 000-37441, a payment to Martha Sullivan in the amount of $4,533.56. Number 0037439, payment to Pamela E. Mills for $9,000. Number 0037440, a payment to Pamela Macy in the amount of $5,540.95. And then going back further is number 0037551 to Diana Neskovska in the amount of $1,125. Those are consultants and AAC device specialists that my child is directly benefiting from outside of district staff. I'll recuse myself from those.
Okay, so you wanna vote on everything but
Everything
those
but
4?
that, yes.
Okay, then we'll have to move in those 4 uniquely.
Perfect.
All right, fine. So, we are now voting on the consent agenda, on the warrant register excluding those 4 line items. Call the question?
Aye.
Aye, so that's a 5-0-0, and this is for everything but noted line items. Okay, let me catch up with my notes.
I'm doing good notes over here.
Okay, good, because
Clerk again.
yeah, I know. It's always good to have a backup. And now we'll move in the warrant register specific to the 4 items previously enumerated by Mr. Pfalzgraf. Do I have somebody in motion?
I'll move that.
Okay, so that's Ed. And I'll second. Okay, call to question on those 4 items. Aye?
Abstain.
Okay, that's a 4-0-1, and the abstain is Mr. Pfalzgraf. Okay, thank you, Mr. Pfalzgraf. You got all that, Yolanda? All right. 4 items. All right, moving on to 12.01, educational and student services. This is an information report. We'll be getting a report from the staff, I believe. There will be no action that we take on this particular item.
So I just want to thank staff that worked on this, Dr. Place, Dr. Cooper, Mr. Andrus, and Ms. Toledo. So it was a group effort, and it's approximately 10 to 15 minutes. Tops, yeah. And so we know you have a big agenda tonight. There's some heavy stuff on there, so we will try to make this informative and brief.
Good evening, board and community members. Welcome, Mr. Jorgensen, softball player. See that? Thanks. We came together to do a brief overview of the California dashboard. It was just released a couple days ago, and we're springboarding off of the hard work that Nisha Patterson presented in October's board meeting, where she presented the raw data and the raw data about our growth from the 16-17 and then the 17-18 year. So again, this is a general overview of the dashboard, how it looks, and the data that Nisha presented, what it looks like on the dashboard. So I'm gonna when all else fails, we'll do it by hand. I could just do my coaching voice. So the first review we wanted to share is explicitly sharing how the performance is measured. And then the performance on the state, it's measured on data from both the current year and prior years, just as Nisha presented. So for state measures, it's based on 2 factors. It's based on the current year's results in comparison to whether or not they've improved since the previous year. So this is just an FAQ. Then we wanted to share the state and local measures for each LCFF priority areas, and you could see in the middle with the state indicators, what the state looks for when it's looked for how we improve, and then also on the far right are the local indicators of what we've established here within our district of how we're gonna measure those priority areas on the left-hand side.
Is there any, was there any reason, what are you trying to point out with the yellow? Does yellow mean anything like a caution?
Yellow is gonna be, we're gonna be moving into that.
Further in, later in the presentation?
Yes, we are. Yes, thank you.
I didn't know if that meant you were doing all of it in terms of wellness. Thanks.
Thank you. And then quickly to the next is, again, what are the performance levels? We've been given raw data, but what does that look like when you look at the dashboard? And it's a dashboard. When you click on it, when you're looking at our district at a glance, or whether or not you're looking at any school within the state, there are 5 performance levels and each one is assigned a different color. Just as similar as we see with traffic signals and whatnot. Red is the lowest, then it goes orange, yellow, green, and then blue. And then you can see within the dashboard, the arrows move from left to the right, is progressive. And then as we transition into it, we wanted to start off and share what our student population is. What is our baseline? What does it look like right now? Just as Mr. King shared, we have a brand new administration. I'm the veteran with 7 months experience, with my wonderful colleagues who've been here for 2 months, and the other one has been here for 3 months. Mr. Cooper, again, I think 1.5 months. So we are looking at this with transparency, and also sharing this with transparency, and also just sharing with the community that this is where we're at, and there's a lot of work for us to do. But again, this serves as a good springboard for our planning that's coming up in the future. When we look at our student population, our total students within our schools are 1,080. It's important to also notice that our socioeconomically disadvantaged students is 53.4. Our EL learners 14.7, and our foster youth are 2.1. This data is collectively as a district. When we look, and if we were to dive down deeper into each of the schools, which we will not go through at this time, but when we do that, we're gonna see higher numbers, lesser numbers, etc. And then also, as I know Mr. Jorgenson has been meeting with all this, the needs are so specialized at each one of the sites because our student population is changing. We also included the district demographics of understanding our EL learners, foster, homeless, socioeconomically disadvantaged, and also our students with disabilities. Then we also included our race and ethnicity. And then we're ready for the next slide. So this is the meat and potatoes of it. This is where we are right now. This is our dashboard at a glance. When you log on to the website, this is an overall grade, just an overall synopsis of how our students have been performing for the past 2 years. And when you look at it, and then we could see the highlighted yellow, those are the subgroups that we're going to be going into. Chronic absenteeism, suspension rates, EL progress, our graduation rates at the high school, college and career, English language arts, mathematics. And the reason why those were highlighted, those are the state mandates. The following are the local, the basics, including teachers, instructional materials, the implementation of the academic state standards. You can then, I'm going down in the middle, parent engagement, the local climate survey, and then last is the access to a broad course of study. And you can see as we move through there, through the color coding where we're at. You can see with chronic absenteeism, we're in the middle of the road. Same with suspensions. Graduation rates are wonderful. We have work to do with college and career, language arts, and mathematics. And again, the presentation with the raw data reflects the same piece.
One note about the colors. When you look at that the first time, people want to say, oh, well, there's 5 things, so blue must be 80% to 100, and green must be, and it doesn't work that way. The colors are not a set value. They also reflect movement every year. So your score in one area may be lower, but if you increased from the year previous, they're going to bump you up a color. Your scores may be high, but if they dropped that year, they may bump you down a color. So it's possible that the raw data would have a school with higher scores in yellow and a school with lower scores in green, because of the movement that they made, it's not an exact set percentage.
And I wanted to speak a little bit about the English language arts. We have just, our second year, started our new curriculum, Month Advance. So there is still a little bit of a learning curve. Teachers are still getting training. They're gonna go out and do observations of other teachers so that they can better their instruction in those areas. The English Learner Progress has no performance color because we're in a transition period. We initially were assessing students in their primary language or English language using CELT, and we've moved into using the LPAC now, which will be fully implemented and utilized this school, next school year in 18-19. With Meadowlark, we are working on hopefully an attendance, some kind of an attendance reward system. Our suspension rate, of course, K through 4 is very little. Again, I addressed the English Learner Progress. Graduation rates don't apply to us at this point. Neither does college and career readiness, although we like to think that we're always putting our kids on that path anyways and introducing them to different things. Our ELA program, again, we're getting there. I think we have lots to do. We're incorporating more collaboration with teachers so that they're able to talk with each other and talking about what works and what they see that they need to improve on. Math is also a program that's fairly new, and again, with the more collaboration that we have, I think the stronger their instruction will be.
And the next is High Desert School. So as we look through High Desert, we know that our targets would be chronic absenteeism, suspension rates, and specifically English language arts. What we're working with chronic absenteeism, we're promoting more on-campus reward system. We have reward system starting second semester, like the no tardy policy, no tardy party, etc. But another important thing to note about the growth that's happened this year is that I understand that we've actually been leading our school district in terms of attendance. So High Desert Schools, although it's perceived or it's in orange, as we have a good strong start off for this school year, our middle school kids have been attending with, I believe, an overall average leading at about 93%. So that's because of the connections that we're making with students. Students are excited to come. Just as Mr. King said, students are coming and even transitioning to 5th graders. They know that there's going to be programs here that students want to attend, just like BASMO, handbells, dancing feet, and also I truly believe that implementation of our new middle school sports has been a really success in getting students not just participating in sports, but knowing that there's a student athlete component of it, and for them to start practicing with us at High Desert. In terms of the suspension rates, I think this is, sometimes discipline needs to happen, and sometimes with student safety, it is our utmost concern. Personally, professionally, I come from a high school setting, so I know that in reading ed code and whatnot, being able to transition that into the middle school has been not necessarily adjustment, but there are firm consequences to student actions, and I know as an administrator how important it is for students to not just understand the consequences for the actions, but also to understand where did we make a mistake and where can we make it right? What could we have done differently at that time, incorporating PBIS, and then also making sure that we reintegrate the student so the student is not suspended a second time. And again, the things that we've seen are very minor, but again, in line with my administration team and cabinet, we know that middle school is pretty crucial because we're going to serve as the foundation for secondary. And with that comes the need for firmer discipline. And just as Tess shared, the discipline model and also what Ed Code permisses changes from elementary to middle school. So this is the first time that a student may be suspended for getting in a scuffle on the yard. So that's a little bit of a curve that we're working with our students, working our students through as well. In terms of English language arts, overall, our scores did improve, but they did improve significantly to keep us in yellow and to move us to green. What we're working on is not just grade level collaboration, because sixth grade, we have an amazing team of 3 teachers, 4 teachers. Sixth grade we do as well, but 7th and 8th we only have 1. So 7th grade we have 1 English teacher, and 8th grade we have 1 English teacher. So we're carving out time of how to collaborate, how to do and introduce the instructional best practices that we're seeing at the 5th and 6th grade level, and how do we create a strong articulation path that leads students to success right through high school. And I will hand it off to Denise.
Right. So at the high school level, you'll see that chronic absenteeism is no longer our indicator for school engagement. The indicator is the graduation rate. Okay, our graduation rate is very high, up in the upper 90s, and so that's a piece that we're very proud of. The suspension rate, Dr. Bice just mentioned, is an interesting one. At the high school, we are just barely under the state average. As I meet with other high school principals and network with them, that's going to be an interesting one. Our plan there.
Under meaning we have less suspensions?
We have more suspensions, just barely more than the state average. Pardon me. Thank you.
No, I just didn't know what under meant. Thank you.
I was thinking big number, small number. So we're working right now as a district to move into a PBIS model, positive behavior intervention support model. With that will come a restorative justice piece that's part of our consequence, our reaction when students do things that are not allowed at the high school. That's going to take some time for high schools to move that culture a little bit. As you look at the high school level, if you try to artificially jump to not suspending or not having any what we call exclusionary consequences, that sends a message that it's okay and you can get away with things. So we're going to be working with that school culture to find that spot in which we reduce the suspension rate because we're working with our kids and reducing activities on campus that might get you suspended. College and career is a high school indicator, and it's an interesting indicator. So to qualify as being ready for college and career, you have to have some combination of 6 different things. High school graduation, one of the things maybe that you've passed at least 2 advanced placement exams. One of the indicators may be that you've taken a dual enrollment class at a community college or at a university. One of the indicators may be that you finished an entire career technical education pathway and completed the capstone course. One of the indicators on there is your SBAC test scores, if you score high enough there. A combination of 2 or 3 of those will qualify a student as college and career ready. A lower combination, there's 3 levels there. We'll put them at a lower level. One of the things that we're going to be working on there is tightening up our CTE programs. We have some really solid programs, but to qualify as a college career indicator, your CTE class has to be taught by a teacher with a CTE credential. We have some really powerful programs where the teachers are doing a fabulous job with our kids, but the piece of paper doesn't say the right thing on it. So there's some ways we can tighten that up. Our A through G, which is the college ready, we're looking at that to see why our percentages aren't a little higher there as well. We're a little bit below the state in that area as well. All right, let's go. Okay, I'm not going to talk a lot about each of these things because I think we've already hit them. You will see an English learner progress there, and I compared district-wide and sites to the state average, and actually our English learner progress puts us higher than the state averages. I think we're looking at how to improve the supports for our English learners. The other areas I think we've talked about. Go ahead. Yolanda. I put Yolanda to sleep, so I apologize for that. These 2 we've talked about already again, but you can see where we are. They put these together. High school, they look at graduation rate, and the other grade levels, they look at absenteeism as a measure of what they call student engagement. Now, conditions and climate. One of the things that you'll see, well, two things you'll see. Parent engagement, it says standard not met, and local climate survey, standard not met. Here's why that is. The board set as their goal in LCAP that from year to year, the number of parents and students answering positively on these surveys would increase 2% every year. Since every question didn't improve by at least 2% in those surveys, the state said, oh, well, you didn't meet your goal. Right? So that's a goal that we set for ourselves. We still have that goal. We are focused on parent engagement. We have great booster and PTSOs to work with. The asthma group is fabulous. So we're working on that. And the local climate survey is a student survey. Again, every question didn't go up 2%, but if you look at the results of that survey, our positives are actually very high with our students. That survey indicates that our kids really do enjoy coming to our schools and identify those as safe places where they feel comfortable. Okay, so this is the last slide, by the way, so you can start waking up. What has to happen now is in the LCAP, we need to set goals and look at what we're going to do for everything that was orange or red in the slides that we just showed you. Those are the areas that you can see up there. And so we will be working with the board and with the district to come back and say, okay, these are the specific actions we're going to take. We know those are going to include a shift to a PBIS model. We're constantly working on instruction in English and math, and we're going to continue to reach out to parents and the community to understand how to best meet the needs. College and career, I mentioned when we were there. So this will be something we'll bring back to the board at a later time with some specifics for you.
Any questions from the board? Start at the end. And we'll come back to it. Tim, do you have?
Yes, I have a couple of things. Just a couple of comments. Forgive me for you're at the end, so you need to step aside the test, right? Okay, so here's what I'm thinking here. Like, when I hear this, I'm going to draw on some of my experiences when I was there. The collaboration that was attempted between the high school and High Desert Middleware was good faith, but the numbers, we weren't successful. So, are we doing something different this time with the collaboration? I'm going to draw on my farming. You're planting the seed, you're trimming the bushes, and you get to harvest it. So in that growth process with our students, where you're identifying the importance of these areas at your level at Meadowlark, you're passing them up to Dr. Bice, 5th and 6th, and 7th and 8th, and then it passes off to Dan. I'm going to call you Dan because
That's my name, that's good.
So I'm circling stuff, and I'm going to come around and talk with you individually. I don't want to take up time tonight, but I just want to, that's one part that's always troubled me, was the collaboration between the sites. Even when I was participating, I was confused, and I'm thinking, how can we do this? Because I was at your site down, and we were getting students, and I'll share just a couple of experiences. I had some great kids that were very smart, very sharp, and they said, I'm not ready to be in high school. And I go, pardon me? How is that possible? You can come in as a freshman, because that was my primary exposure, was to the freshmen. I'm not ready. The rigor, they had the math, they had the English, but the rigor that we were trying to expose them to and continue on with at the high school, they were telling me they weren't prepared. That, really, I got to do all this? Yeah, you do. So I'm glad that you're working with us. I'm excited because I see a lot of really some energetic and some new faces, which I think is great. You all inherited things. Okay, you inherited them, you get to make it new now. So, and I'm looking forward to working with you on that. But that collaboration piece was one question I had. The other one that I draw back to my 4 years when I was dean was absenteeism and suspension. I used to bump heads with my principal because I didn't want to suspend kids. Because my classroom as the dean was the entire campus. So And you're the only one that's lucky, Dan. You've got Lisa as your dean. The other ones have to, the other two ladies have to work by themselves. Before I would suspend somebody, we have to educate them on why and whatnot. And I heard some really good things here about we have to, our job is not only to teach them math and English and science, and everything, we have to teach them how to be young adults and responsibility and accountability. So maybe I'm not gonna suspend you. I'm gonna give you a couple of gloves and a bag, and you're gonna go out and work on the campus this weekend, and you're gonna spend some time with me and whatever. So that we don't suspend them, we get them and let them take responsibility and accountability, and then touching base with parents doing, because we're in contact with them numerous hours in a week, and we've gotta continue with that to cut down on them.
Giselle wants to talk.
I am really excited to say that, and thank you so much. Yes, that's what we're doing, especially at High Desert. And I know some of my amazing staff members here. I think every faculty meeting I start off, I cannot change in 15 to 30 minutes a situation that's been happening in your classroom. There isn't a magic wand that any of us do when we get to step 5 of the positive behavior interventions, the progressive discipline that we have. It's not gonna magically change just because the student talks to me. That's also where the integration of PBIS is happening, and we are leading it at High Desert. The gaps that I saw was that the emotional change, developmental change between elementary and middle school, the shift to the change that we even saw from students being in self-contained classrooms to 6 different teachers and 6 different expectations, teaching the same, we all have the same rules, we all have different styles. And the frustration, honestly, of our teachers. The frustration of how do I manage a different type of student, just like we saw with our populations, how do we do that? So I'm really proud of our staff for pushing forward with PBIS, and as we're literally just only in our 3rd meeting at High Desert, we've implemented the PBIS flow chart. We have implemented the 5-step, and a lot of it is coaching of our teachers. I'm a softball player, played at San Francisco State. A lot of it is coaching our staff because that's where I think a lot of the gaps are. Our hearts are in the right place. I think they need coaching up to see this different growth mindset, and also to focus on positive behavior, but also building positive relationships, and how to also learn how to forgive and to allow students to make it right. Because I am mindful of our suspension. Suspension doesn't solve anything. It doesn't. The student still gets to come back into your class. So how are we building the relationship? How can we, like what Dan said, talking about conflict resolution, restorative justice, it's key. And I almost think that it's critical at the middle school that we attack that piece. And I didn't mean to hog it, but I also want to save her because she's only been here for 2 months.
That's okay.
And I'll be quiet in just a second, but students are everything for me. So you have the most, to me, you have the hardest challenge of exposing them to accountability, responsibility, and all this stuff. And then by the time they get to the high school, they're warmed up to it. They know that if they do this, then things are going to happen. But I want to suggest you don't suspend on Monday and Friday. It's only Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. There's no 3-day weekends for suspension.
I haven't done
I
that.
would do a 5-day suspension, and I said, okay, I'll see you. You're off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Come back to school Monday and Friday, and then you're off Tuesday, Wednesday. No, you're going to be here Monday and Friday with the rest of us. I'm done. Thank you.
I'll be real quick. One of the things that we are really looking at, and PBIS will bring this out even more, if it's not a safety issue, we're not going to be suspending. So if it's violence, if it's weapons, if it's sharing of drugs, alcohol, tobacco, vape, we need to take a time out. Everything else that falls under that teenage behavior model, we need you at school to be able to work with you and change those behaviors. So we're trying to draw some delineation where we're helping and not just send it home.
And I just want to add one thing, and that is at our last professional development, one of our workshops that the teachers attended was addressing the social emotional learning part of the child, and really looking at the child as a whole, building those relationships between teacher and student and family, and making sure we understand what is going on in their lives, because there are a lot of things that are displayed at school that need to be understood. Why is that child happening? And so teachers are getting that training and learning how to build those relationships and changing the language that they use when they address kids. And I think we're gonna see a lot of positive changes. More attendance, we're gonna see kids loving school, and that's what our goal is.
And increasing or decreasing, no, increasing that they're gonna go to High Desert and they're gonna go to Vasquez.
Yes,
Rather
absolutely.
than go off in
Yeah.
someplace else. Very good, thank you, appreciate it.
Anything else?
No, I'm done.
Ed,
Thanks,
we started at your end. Do you have any? Okay.
There's kind of a vicious circle going on here in the two areas on the right there, the parent engagement, the local climate survey. For 2 years running, I was the only attendee to the public session where it was advertised in the district, come out, input to the LCAP. What the LCAP does is it says, there used to be all this, it's like where I work, the funding used to be a nightmare because you had to move this fund to here and it was all percentage based and all that type of thing. So LCAP gives the district the ability to be more, make better decisions about how to put the money, but the constraint is that you're basing on input from the community, and that's measured. I know that the PTOs, the PTSO, the organized groups are always participating in this, the teachers participate in it. But when the community checks out and then comes back along later and says, well, my kid isn't getting what they need, kind of look in the mirror if you're in the community and you don't attend the meeting, if you have an issue, if you feel you're underserved, whether you represent one of the Title I groups or something like that, you have to give these people input. I think one of the things that would prompt this along, and now that the election is over, I'm not running her up to vote, I think y'all already did, but she had an idea, and it's pretty commonplace to do strategic planning where you're asking the community to come forward and say, hey, what do you think is important in terms of technical trades, those types of things, behavior, that kind of thing. On the behavior thing, I think that site accountability is really important. I'm glad that you all are standing over there. You cannot be an effective principal if you are not physically at the site each day. I think there's been an improvement there. Calling the district office and dumping all the HR problems on the district office, whether it be students or staff, is not an acceptable means of doing anything. When you're sweeping suspensions under the rug, the kids learn fast. I can do this, it gets me attention, and it undermines what's really going on in the classroom. If you've got a couple of falls, you have kids coming through your chain and you're a teacher, you tend to hate life, especially if these people aren't doing anything and dumping it off on him and he really doesn't know. So I think that those last things can change. We're seeing some reporting of some things, better reporting, which seems like our suspension rate is higher. I think that we'll get through that bubble because I think things are being reported and there's some accountabilities being set that these types of behaviors will not be tolerated on our site. When you get that message out there, you don't be out in your car during my school period doing things on my school grounds. Once that message is out and you know you're gonna get caught, you know there's consequences, and you're making the choice to have those consequences put on you, then you get to grow up that Tim is talking about. So thank you, that's it.
Just a couple things what Tim hit on, we've had conversations, Larry, and I've been concerned about, suspensions, but with that being said, I certainly want to leave that to our administrators to run their sites, because I know we're not there every day and you are. With PBIS, I've heard a couple things like the change is difficult coming to middle school, so I want to make the connection so everybody understands that PBIS, it's teaching them how to behave, not necessarily having everything in place. Sometimes we assume students don't know how to behave, so I want you to be thinking about that over the holidays as the kids come back, to remind everyone that we might need to teach them how to behave again when they've been out of school for several weeks. So to do that, and I'm interested to hear what he said about your previous, because I do have new administrators and things, about your vertical articulation, what that looked like before and what your goals are, so we can all sort of be on the same page. It's no secret that I'd like to see a strategic plan where everybody knows the plan. It's not a binder or a poster on the wall, because that doesn't mean anything unless it's action. But one thing I'm going to encourage the three of you to talk about and you discuss is that you really look at those anchor standards. so that everyone has a focus of where we're supposed to be. I mean, everybody tries to teach standards. Do we know our standards really well? And there's sometimes I've noticed like the primary grades, they're teaching at a higher level, not to be rigorous, but it's actually not one of their standards. If you're doing well, it's really hard to bump it up to get that dashboard. But who can't be proud of a blue dashboard when we are, getting kids ready to go to college and graduate. I am concerned about the math scores, that's no secret, but just so everybody is aware, there was actually an article about how 11th grade scores were all over the state of California. So that's not just us, so we do, but that doesn't mean we should ignore it. We need to really dig in and see what's happening with our high school math, so thank you.
I have a couple nuts and bolts questions just so I'm better at reading the dashboard. So, on the student population page, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 student groups identified. And so I understand how to use it. So there's 5 student groups identified, and those I'm sure those groups are defined by the state.
Right.
And of course, a student can be in more than one group.
Right.
Okay. So there's 5 student groups, and then when I go and look at the dashboards, let's say, I'm just trying to figure out reason my way through what I'm learning here. Let's go down a little farther. Just keep going with the slides. I'll tell you when to quit. Stop. One back. One more back. There you go. Okay, and so now it's kind of giving us a histogram of how many are in each color. And I see, 1 student group here, 3 student groups in orange, referring to the left-hand side, 1 student group in green. And I'm assuming 1 and 2 and 3 is 5, so those are the 5 student groups and where they land. Does that mean that where are the students who are not in one of those student groups?
Right. So to have a student group, you have to have at least 30 students who are in the group. So
what I'm reading as a student group there is not necessarily the definitions of student groups in the first page.
So for instance, if we have, at the high school, we have 28 English learners. Since it's not 30, they're not a student group for the dashboard. If you don't hit at least 30 in the group, they don't report it out as a student group because they've said statistically, we're not going to really be giving you fair data.
Do the dashboards represent also this? Remember on the first page, there was, what percentage of the population's in each definition of student group. And of course, there's a percentage of the population that's not on there that are part of the 10,000 or 1,080 kids. But their results are in this dashboard.
Right. So
they're excluded from the dashboard.
So all of the students are represented in the dashboard. When you look at English, it's going to give you a whole school or a whole district that's all students, and then it's going to show you also a dashboard for each of the student groups that have at least 30 students in them.
Thank you. Now I know how to read it. Go to the website. Thank you. That was my question. I guess my comment is, of course, Kelly's notations, it resonates in the areas where you're doing well. If you backslide a little bit, you get a poor score. But that's not most of these cases, I wouldn't think. A lot of these cases. Yeah, that's right. But it's hard to stay perfect in the areas where you're doing pretty darn good. So, but having said that, the English and the math looks like there's some work to be done there. And look forward to when you actually roll out some improvement approaches. Thank you for a thorough presentation. Anything else you got?
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Business and financial. Item number 13. Resolution 13.0.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie. Item 13.0, resolution number 18-19.06 to approve the charter school renewal petition from iLead Hybrid. Will somebody move in this topic? So moved. Second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. King?
So, unless the board has some clarification questions, we do have some folks here from iLead, and Shay Patterson is here. I just wanted to clarify one piece that Ms. Jensen asked me about in regards to some of the data and so on. If you were to take 6 percentages and average them out to that total box we talked about, it doesn't mathematically work that way because they're taking the actual raw data.
Okay.
So they're actually looking at the student scores, averaging all of those out, not just the 6 numbers. So it's a great question.
Okay.
And that's why it's slightly off.
So 50%.
Yeah.
Any other board member questions or comments?
Yes, I have some questions.
Would you like to go next?
Guys, I'm good, thank you very much. Tim? Okay, so, here's a couple questions. I've got some clarifying questions. In this, why not, Dawn?
Mirror there.
No, up here. No, I'll tell you what, let's just switch. Where in your document do I find the physical location of your sites? In the petition?
The physical location of our sites?
Yes.
It should be in there. Yes.
So where would I find that? Do you guys know your petition?
Yes, we know our petition.
So where in?
I don't have it memorized, and I'm sorry.
But it is in here.
Yes. It's
So
in
where's
there.
Cypress?
Where is Cypress?
It's in Orange County, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And
So-
and most of our kids are not, they don't need a location, because they do the homeschool program in that chart.
Okay, but you do have a physical location in Orange County.
Yes.
I don't recall hearing that in your presentation, your initial presentation. And I don't see it in your performance data.
Well, we don't, in our performance data, we don't take those sites and extrapolate them from the data. The data from the state is the whole hybrid charter, so that's what we have.
So,
And that is the homeschool charter portion that you're
but
talking
you do
about.
have a physical location in Orange County.
It is a good place to hold IEPs and have tutoring, and there are some enrichment classes that are offered
So
there.
do you hear that I'm telling you that I didn't hear really clearly? I know about the one in AV. I know clearly about that.
Yes.
But this kind of hit me when the attorney opinion come forward, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, with this site, here's what's going on down there.
Mhm.
So, is there a reason that we should be having a real estate search down there, or did
No,
we miss
because
anything?
you can have one out of county. That's our one out of county.
Okay, so my question about that is, my follow-up question to that is, in the next couple months before the June 30 drop dead date hits, you know that, are you gonna come forward with material revisions and piggyback other sites that we don't know about onto this petition? Is
No.
that- Okay, good. Is there anyone here from the AV districts that has that wants to talk to me about this place not being in the Antelope Valley? This is my understanding, Shay, that you formally contacted in writing the superintendents over there where this place is, I'm talking to Shay now, from our district, confirming that they know that this resource center is there. Is that correct?
Yes, they had sent a.
I already know the answer, I just want this on
Yes,
the record.
they actually physically walked over a letter to both districts for Lancaster School District and the Antelope Valley Union High School District. And I followed up with an email to Dr. Vieira and to the superintendent of Lancaster School District. I did get a reply from AV that he would be looking for that document, and so yes.
In addition to that, I met with the superintendent of Lancaster School District today. She is well aware and we discussed it.
Okay, so my question here is, I read things in the newspaper sometimes where it paints us out. I think the word ignorant was used in one. I ask everybody the same questions. In fact, the next one up will get the questions I asked them the last time. And so I want it very clear that everyone knows that that is over there, it's been over there, and that all of the districts that are over there where this is located have been formally contacted, not only by the petitioner, but we are the oversight to them. So Shay has told us, and we're fully aware that those letters have been sent out. Now I want to ask you, staff, what is the capacity at AADUSD?
Capacity
Of number of students, what's the highest number we've ever held that we've ever when is it packed at the seams?
for the site that they are at right now.
Yes, AADUSD, regardless of who was there, whether it was a district school, it was a charter school, what is the capacity there?
Yeah, probably, yeah, about 400 to 500.
Okay, so it's my understanding that your petition for that site, which is different than this site, that is a seat-based, that your initial idea was that it would probably be in at least the first year or second year about 140, 150, which it has, that's kind of what it's been the last 3 or 4 years, regardless of who's been there. And you figured out how to run that there, and it seems to be running fine, but this is completely different. So the number of students over there is my understanding by what you claimed in your petition and in your scores and all that kind of thing. It all adds up to at least 500 students, is that correct?
At Antelope Valley?
Yes.
No, I don't think you have 500 students. They have 325.
So my question here is, if you were to combine both of those one site, there just physically would not be enough room.
Exactly.
Okay, is everyone clear on that?
What's the current ADA at AADUSD?
127.
And that is expected to grow in your projections?
Yes,
Okay.
each year, managing growth.
And it's very unlikely that you may see some upswing in the middle of the year when kids finish out the half part of the year and then come back from vacation and maybe choose to change then. But it's very unlikely that you would see a huge number influx in the middle of the year. More likely that would come when people move or do whatever. So, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions. Everything that I have talked about.
I would like to congratulate you on your performance over the last 5 years. You know, you can always look at the data different ways, but you know, you did pretty well, and you should be congratulated for that in your performance. And I appreciate the fact that you guys also run that AADUSD campus and provide, albeit under a different charter, choice for our students. So it's actually, this was for me one of the easier renewals. So, because when people are doing okay, for me it's easier to vote the affirmative. All right, so anything else, folks, before we?
They wore me out. I got nothing.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Well, we haven't voted. So.
No, I'm saying congratulations, you were.
Oh, all right. Let's see. Here we are on the highway. Okay. So we are. I'm not seeing. We are taking action.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I see. It's handwritten. All right. Very good. So let's call the question. Aye.
Aye.
5-0-0. Congratulations, folks. Keep up the work. All right. Item 13.02, public hearing, SIA Tech Charter School Renewal Petition. And this is just a public hearing. There'll be no action taken, but let's open the public hearing at 9:15.
Over that time, I really appreciate the support and the work that the superintendent, as well as the board and Ms. Pattison and also Ms. David and their predecessors have given us, and it's been a great positive relationship, and we appreciate it. We at SciTech, we're very proud of really the work that we do, because we serve a very special population, a dropout recovery population. These are many times overaged and undercredit students And this is really sort of the last ditch effort on their part to really get a high school diploma. So we are very proud of our mission, which is the next slide, please. Providing a premier high school dropout recovery program and engaging the students in such a way that not only do we infuse the high level of technology that they're going to need for their career or advancement of whatever it is that they wish to do, but also really focus on the relationship aspect of it. For us, having that relationship piece is extremely important. So having staff that really care about the students and also make the time for the students and focus on that. Like I said, this is a very special population, and they oftentimes unfortunately come from dysfunctional families and dysfunctional backgrounds, and so that piece becomes really critical. And I think when you see our attendance rates of our students that are really twice the norm of such programs in the state, that speaks volumes, I think, for the type of work that our staff does and the passion that they put into it. So without further ado, I will turn it over to my colleagues who will take you through the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, board, for having us here this evening. Jay Gordon, principal. So like Mike was saying, the population that we service are typically 16 to 24 who have dropped out of various high schools in the different neighborhoods that we service. 95% of our population is eligible for a free or reduced lunch. Next slide. The locations that we have currently are in Pico Union and Boyle Heights, are in the city of Los Angeles, just outside of the downtown LA area, and Culver City to the west of Los Angeles, just outside of South Central LA. All three locations are located near subway stations. Pico Union next to the Gold Line, to the Red Line, Boyle Heights the Gold Line, and Culver City the Expo Line. Here are ethnicity demographics. The bulk of our students are Hispanic, with African American students being second in terms of the number of students, with the bulk of our students being Hispanic. Grade level demographics are pretty evenly split amongst 10, 11, and 12th grade. Gender demographics are also about even. And special.
I'm Liz Haslam, Chief Academic Officer. Just want to speak a little bit to our special populations. We do provide full services for our English language learners, our students who require special ed services, as well as those students who qualify for the AB 216, which you heard about earlier. Those are foster youth, homeless, previously incarcerated, and now also children of military families who their education may have been disrupted from having to move from place to place. We make sure that we provide all the services that those students may need to give them an education that is equitable to students in all of the other groups as well.
This is just a quick slide on the history of our ADA since our charter's inception. As you can see, each year our ADA has grown, and we have a projected pretty big increase in 1819 due to the addition of our Culver City site. And we also have seen increased enrollment at Pico Union and Boyle Heights, mostly due to hiring a recruiter that has gone out into the surrounding neighborhoods and recruited more students for us. And then just a quick slide on our financial stability. This was our adopted budget for 18-19 back at the end of last school year, so it was prior to bringing on the Culver City site that came on in July. So it was, our LCFF was based on 109 ADA. We have our state revenue, which is our lottery and our mandated costs. We have our local revenue, our special ed funding from the district here. And then our expenses, of course, are our salary and benefits for our teachers. We have our facility leases, our oversight fees to the district, our LINCO services, and we also have a college readiness block grant that we're using the money this year for a Chromebook initiative that we have put forth. We have our capital outlay for our leased copy machines, computers, and servers. And we have projected at the end of this school year, we're going to have about a 13% reserve.
We're cross-accredited and currently going through a self-study right now. We will be seeking the 6-year accreditation for that. And in the middle of self-study right now. Curriculum is A through G approved courses. We meet the UC requirements, CSU requirements, and we run a mastery-based program where students cannot move forward in their core content areas or any class until they've shown mastery of the material, 80%. We do have CTE pathways through the CCPT grant that we have, and the 2 pathways currently right now are healthcare and transportation. Also have partnerships with East LA Community College and LA Trade Tech in downtown LA to offer those classes on the campus, and faculty also come to the campuses as well. It's a personalized learning academic program, meaning that we take a look at each student individually and look at the strengths that they're bringing to the table, both academic and non-academic, and develop a really personalized one that's going to meet their individual needs.
I get to talk about accountability, and I'm so glad that you already have the dashboard, because I'm like, yes, they're gonna know what I'm talking about. So because we are an alternative school, due to the students that we serve and our population, we are actually measured differently than the dashboard that you saw earlier, but it's a parallel system that is still in development. So we're kind of building the plane while we're flying it. So we will be under the dashboard of alternative school status, which they're pronouncing DOS, I think that's cute. So these, you saw these earlier, the indicators, but they are going to be measured differently for alternative schools. Can you go to the next slide, please? So the academic indicators currently on our dashboard don't show anything because we didn't have enough students because of the transience of our population. There wasn't enough data to post scores. We use our own internal, well, it's a assessment by Renaissance Learning called the STAR assessment in reading and math. Our goal was to show growth. This chart goes from right to left, so we're actually trending up, although usually you read charts trending down. And so it's reading on the left side, math on the right side. And we measure individual student achievement based on their growth assessment and baseline assessment. We quarterly assess our students, and our expectation is that their growth will be more than the time that they're with us. So it's a complex system, one that we've been working with the state. This data comes from Stanford University, Dr. John Schachter, who does this for us, and he's actually also working with the state on their alternative measures. And so we've created this parallel system to show that our students are making progress, although the state assessment, which is only given one time a year, doesn't really give an accurate indicator for our population. Next slide, please. We did not receive an English Learner Progress Indicator because of the low number of students. However, we do the LPAC assessments for our students in accordance with the state. We were doing the SELF, and then they switched over to LPAC. We do track our English language learners and our reclassification, but I think you saw on that first slide, right, those numbers are from right now, and I think we only have 30 students currently, so last year we didn't have enough to qualify to receive a rating. And then our graduation rate, so this is actually, this is something we're very excited about, not because we're in the red, but because right now the graduation rate is based on a 4-year cohort. Our students don't fit in the 4-year cohort. So our 15,000 graduates that we've had over the past 20 years don't count to the state. And that's something that we've been working really hard on since we started. And so our superintendent, Dr. Linda Dawson, actually sits on a committee that helps to come up with the alternative assessments. And this year, the state has created a 1-year cohort graduation rate that we are very excited about. Our nonprofit arm is called the Reaching Out Promise Students Association. We've done advocacy across the country for alternative accountability. We know what goes on in other states. This 1-year graduation cohort is far and above what most states are doing to really measure the impact that we're having on these students' lives. So next year, we expect this to be much over to the other side because we will be measured on a one-year cohort and all of our graduates will count. Right now, you can see it looks very low, but that again is because they're only counting the students who started 9th grade and then 4 years later graduated, and that's almost none of our students. So we can go to the next slide. These are the number of graduates that we've had over the years since we started, and so we are growing. This year we've had 3 so far. We've had an additional graduate each year. As you saw from what Tracy Brown showed us, our enrollment is really increasing, our ADA is increasing, so we expect these numbers to increase pretty dramatically over the next couple. Our suspension rate is good. We rarely have to suspend students. Our students come to us voluntarily. They're there because they want to be there, and 9 times out of 10, if they know that they're not going to have access to the school anymore, that's something that is they don't want to have happen to them. And so our staff do work with them on different behavior issues and things like that, but for the most part, historically, our suspension rates are low. So the college and career indicators are also another one, and they spoke about that earlier as far as, students having to complete a career pathway, having to complete the A through G complement of courses, those different things. They are coming up with new college and career indicators for alternative schools. And actually, if you go to the next slide. So we're already geared up to collect this information. We're not sure yet exactly what it's going to be, but we collect college enrollment. We are part of CalPass, the new system to collect that data, as well as the National Clearinghouse. And career technical education, Dr. Gordon spoke to that as far as we do offer those classes. And the alternative indicators will be course completion rather than pathway completion, and the same thing for A through G courses. Our challenge is many of our students, well, they're all mostly transfer students, and they come to us with many credits completed that were not A through G, so trying to get them through the whole A through G complement is a challenge, but if they start with us, they'll get all their A through G courses. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Gordon for a couple of student stories.
Kevin Bohorkas, recent graduate of our Culver City site. Picture of his family. Every student, when they graduate, they have to do a public presentation, similar to what we're doing here. And that was a photograph taken at the end of that presentation. That's Marco Flores, Pico Union graduate with Senator Ben Hueso at the state capitol. We took him up there to meet and greet with some of the people at the state capitol. He's also a professional boxer and is currently enrolled at LA Community College with currently looking at psychology as a major. And Celeste Romedes, a current student at our Boyle Heights site, and looking at East LA Community College as a place to where she want to continue education next. Formerly was in an LA USD larger public high school and enjoys the smaller learning environment that we provide to her. Expected graduation is this June 2019. And that concludes everything. Thank you for your time.
You still have 4 seconds.
Wow.
Beat the buzzer.
Okay, you gotta start over now.
Maybe I'll.
Hey, I can run a crane, I just can't run this.
All right, I'm going to call the public hearing closed at 9:31. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be evaluating as our staff.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So that brings us to.
Do we have questions? Do we have time for questions?
Oh, do we normally have questions?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
My bad. I thought these questions. That's okay.
Oh, they want to know what to put in. You want to know, right?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Well, hearing's still open. I will take away the 9:31 note, and Ken, why don't you start with your questions, and we'll get this chance.
Okay, let's figure out how to characterize your school. Would you say you're WIOA?
Yes.
Yes.
Good, that takes care of a big one.
Yes.
Would you say that most of your students fit what's historically been Title I students? Like the vast majority?
Absolutely.
I'm okay, I can do this. Would you say,
And so you should start that for another 20 minutes. I know we're not gonna.
I don't know, I'm lost on this here. So anyway, let's keep on track. Let's keep on track. My thought process is disrupted, that's not
You
good.
just asked your Title I question.
Oh, I got that. As soon as we're done over here with this circus, we'll be all right, thank you. Okay, you all good? So, would it be fair to characterize that you have students that come in, maybe are having a problem somewhere else, maybe catch up, maybe stabilize, and actually return to what might be more considered a more typical placement? Does that ever happen?
Yes.
So that might account for why someone may be at your school for 6 months, a year and a half, or 2 years.
Yes.
So the volatility in the kids going in and out and the difficulty of measuring the individual.
Yes.
Good. Is this like a virtual environment where I sign onto a computer for a minute, you get ADA and, okay, that's
Well-
good, that's enough. Like that one. What was that, K through 12 that was doing that?
Yeah.
That was a theoretical question. Who provides your sped services? Is it our district?
Well, yeah.
We provide our.
Who's your
Provider.
cell
Yeah,
phone?
we are.
El Dorado?
No, we use this. Where's Nicole?
I know, well, we have Nicole, and Nicole will take care of
Yeah.
the IEPs that we have.
Okay, but who is your cell phone?
That's this stuff.
No,
No.
something's with the district.
No, our-
Okay, so now we get to bring
Now
our
you're
staff
interested.
into
We
it.
have one person
The-
that's not here.
The
It's
web
not recording.
thickens.
Yeah.
Shay,
Yes.
Yes.
It
Do
is
we-
Acton,
do we
Aqua Unified, yes.
so we oversee them.
Yes,
They're sped.
yes.
How many
But-
FTEs? How much FTE effort do we have in overseeing their sped? Do you use our psychologists to do your assessments?
No.
So you're just basically who's entering your SACE data?
We have a special ed coordinator and credential teachers.
Yeah, we don't do.
Okay, so we have no sped liability with these people. It sounds like I don't have to ask questions about your child finder assessment process.
No, we do have a student
Good.
study team, yeah.
So, can I be a vendor for you? Serve as a vendor or serve as back of house and sit on a board for you at the same time? I like your answer.
No.
Yeah, go with your answer. Yeah, conflict of interest. You have board meetings, you have a board, correct?
Yes.
Do you have meetings?
Yes.
Is the agenda posted?
Yes.
Do you keep minutes?
Yes.
Are they available to the public, so I can go right now and find out what happened
On
at
our
your last
website.
meeting?
Yes.
I'm done, thank you.
I just have a couple easy questions, mostly out of curiosity. Do you guys have your transfer rate? Can you tell us what that is, when they start and when they end with you?
I'm sorry.
What's the percentage of students that start in the 9th grade and do you know off the top of your head?
Well, we typically don't serve 9th graders, we start at 10th grade.
10th grade.
And then it really, no, we're working on a retention rate right now, and our current retention rate is only about 52%, so maybe that answers your question.
Okay,
So the
yeah.
transient rate would be about 48%.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good, yeah. And just out of curiosity, graduation ceremonies, do you have them? And what happens when your students graduate?
Yes,
You guys did.
we have ceremonies, and even though there might not be a whole lot of students there, we have a full-on ceremony. Dr. Gordon will probably speak more to that, but we have venues. We're at the Puente Center in Boyle Heights, and we have our graduation ceremonies there.
And for your Smartest Balance assessment, you had 49 students but only tested 12, is that correct?
That sounds correct.
Okay,
Yes.
and so what's the reason why they're?
Usually, again, because of the transients, because by the time they say, these are your students you have to test,
Okay.
they might not even be with us anymore by the time we actually assess. And then we have new students that came in that we have to assess even though they just started with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I have two other questions. I'm curious to know about the CTE grant. When will that run out? How how long do you have that money?
So the CCPT grant is actually ending this year. We also have this Career Tech Innovation CTIG grant, and we're currently applying for the new Strong Workforce Program grant money.
Okay, just what will happen to that program if
Well, we actually have a sustainability plan built in, and so the majority of those staff we're actually able to keep with the increase in ADA that we've seen because of these programs that we've implemented.
That's great. And my last question is Chromebooks. You said you're working on getting all the students Chromebooks. What are you gonna do with that? What is that curriculum gonna look like? What is the purpose? Are they gonna take them home? I mean, obviously, because you're not C-based, but what is that gonna?
So our curriculum is currently available through our learning management system, Schoology, online, and our pilot site is the Pico Union site. We currently have 100% of our students there have Chromebooks. We also have Wi-Fi enabled devices for those students that don't have internet at home. And so we are now collecting data. We just started this year, so we're collecting data to see the impact on retention rate, course completion, graduation rate, and so basically how that is impacting our students and making sure that they have equitable access at all times.
And do you have a way to shut the Chromebook down or get it back if they?
Yes, that's one of the reasons we went with Chromebook. We have a whole system that we can shut it down, we can monitor, we follow E-rate even though they won't pay for it. But so it's fully, that's again why we went with the Chromebooks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Couple of small questions.
Okay,
Couple of questions. Now, I noticed on the one slide where you had 10, 11, 12, you gave your student population of that. So you're not technically, ninth graders, they're coming to you from another school where they either they dropped out, or they left, or they transited or moved. So your focus is 10, 11, 12
Right.
to complete their high school education.
Right. We start at age 16. So typically, I mean, sometimes the students will come in and they won't even have 9th grade credits, but our expectation that they'll finish in 3 years because we're an accelerated program. So we start at 10th grade.
So that leads to my next question. So they can accelerate and finish early. So
Yes.
it's based on their motivation. You're providing the support services, so they don't have to wait 2 years, 3 years. And you, did I hear right that you have 2 graduation dates in the year?
Yes. We usually
So one
December and June.
Okay. All right, good.
I actually have one. How hard would it be to pull up the PowerPoint? I can't remember what slide it was on.
Okay.
And I remembered I had a question. And I do questions now, and I'm glad we have it. By the way, you guys did a great job. You helped me. Just pan down. Next. Stop. One. Not financial.
Let me reset the timer.
Red light's going on.
No, next one. No. Huh, I missed it. The one with the kid on it.
That was
Okay, thank you. That was it. Students must achieve 80% mass.
That's not gonna make him go away.
Can you add time, please?
So my question was gonna be, how is 80% mastery measured? Is it a teacher saying they've got it, or is it based on a test results or something specifically less qualitative?
So we have assessments built into the curriculum that assess mastery. It could be a rubric scored essay, it could be a quiz, it could be a test.
It's online.
And so, yes, and our grade books are all set for each course.
And just curious, because I get tests like that at work as my constant training. And I can usually, if I get the answer wrong, just go back a chart, read it again, and then get the answer right. Is it 42?
Thank you, guys.
And Ken, you can turn off that timer if you don't mind. It's all distracting to you.
It's all I have.
Okay, bear with me a second, folks. I'm taking my notes. 9:42. All right. We'll move on to 13.03, annual certification of signatures. pursuant to Education Code 42632 and 42462.
David, and have her share on this and take any questions the board may have.
Okay, each year we are required to report out the developer fees that were collected in the prior year and what those fees would be used for. So this is actually the report that we create, and I just posted on the website as required by law. Last year, we actually saw a slight increase over prior years for the developer fees. Last year in 2017-2018, we collected $96,828.76 in developer fees. Those fees are collected on either new construction or modernizations of a home, expansions. And the reason is because there's an assumption that those spaces would ultimately at some point in time require student housing. So what the district uses those for is for construction, modernization, associated service costs for district schools, and to provide debt service payments. We did end the 2017-2018 fiscal year with $224,587 in that fund. Yes.
Specifically, the debt service reference here, what is that definition?
For the COP, I guess it was, I know for a fact it was before my time. There was some sort of a modernization, either, I think it was related to earthquake.
I remember
some sort of work done. It was a COP.
Modernization project.
Mm-hmm.
It's a COP. That Johnson controls
Was that the Johnson?
I think it is, but don't.
Is that, how long, is that almost done?
No.
Life sentence.
It's pretty long.
Okay.
I'd have to go. I'll have to get back to you with how much is remaining.
Okay. You answered my question. That was my question. You answered it. So that's what I suspected it was.
Normally we collect about $50,000. That's been an average, but last year I believe, I don't know for certain, but I believe that it was due to the fact that we did do the developer fee study.
Right.
And we did raise the rates as allowed by law, and so we had a lot of activity right before that kicked in.
Ah, because people were getting their building permits before that
Yes.
change. Okay. All right. Any other questions on this topic, ladies and gentlemen? Okay. Thank you, Ms. David.
You're welcome.
So that discussion is complete, and we will move on to 13.05, board policy, travel expenses. First read of revised BP 3350. That's a good question. Boy, she's obviously thought about this.
Hey, piggybacker.
13.06, first interim report for the 2018-2019 school year. All budget reports, those always take a bit of time. Okay, and this will be an action because we'll ultimately be approving this so that we can get it in on time.
Yeah.
So I need a motion to move it in.
So moved.
In order, I'll second it.
Okay, we do have a PowerPoint presentation. What's attached on, while it's being brought up, what's attached to the board agenda item is the actual SACS report with all of our funds. Anyone who wants to read about 100 pages of little teeny tiny text, they're welcome to do that. But this is a summary of those. So this is our first interim report, and I will warn you that some of the slides they're sort of repetitive. But given the fact that we have some new board members, I wasn't sure who might be in the audience. I want to make sure that I at least am able to include those. And so I'll go quickly, but if anyone wants me to back up as I go through pretty quickly the ones that we've seen in the past.
I'm going to ask a quick point.
Sure.
Hey, Ed? Yes. When do I have to ask us if we need to extend for a half hour?
At 10 o'clock, exactly.
Okay.
At 10
Well, wait till, I might have to interrupt you.
Okay.
Okay. Go on. Thank you.
Okay.
We voted for an extension, for a one-time extension amount.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so just as a point of clarification, this is the first interim. It's a cycle. Every year we do have a cycle that we move through. We have the adopted budget back by July 1st. This is the first interim report that shows us where we are. In my mind, the first interim report is actually one of the most critical ones. At the end of the year, when we're building a budget, we're making assumptions about if we have new staff, what that might cost us. So this is where, and then during summer, some kids move in or out, and so we have some staffing changes with respect to support staff. So this is where we really have our firm numbers. So next slide, please. Again, what and why, the really big picture of this is that we are looking and always wanting to keep positive certification. What that means is the district is able to meet its financial obligations for the current year and two next fiscal years. So what we're focusing on for the most part is right now, but we can never lose track of the fact that we have to meet the satisfaction of 2 additional years. So again, I know you guys have all seen this a million times, but I do want to reinforce again that we do have different funds. The ones that we talk about the most, what our main operating budget is the general fund. There are unrestricted funds and restricted funds. LCFF, local control funding formula funds, come under unrestricted. There are some, and a point of clarification is they are unrestricted, but they may be targeted, certain aspects of it, which means that if we get supplemental, and we go back to that a little bit later, if we get certain funds that are generated by our unduplicated pupils, they're not restricted, but they need to be targeted for those purposes. Our other funds, we have some other funds, and they have numbers of 13 to 40, and they are for specific things to carry out different operations or activities in the district. Again, LCFF funding varies by the district. The big picture idea of this is that it's very specific to each district and each charter school. So it starts with a base funding amount that is based on your ADA. It then actually has money for K-3 and 9-12, breaks down augmentation, and then our unduplicated pupils. We do not get concentration funds. Some of our neighbors up the hill and down the hill actually have those funds, because they have a greater percentage of students who meet the criteria of English learner, foster youth, or both socioeconomic. Again, this is the big picture on this one. What I know I've included this before, but what's significant this year and why I've decided to include it rather than leave it out is when you look at some of the prior years, when we were first implementing LCFF and we had gap funding, although the percentage where it says gap funding percentage, like in the first year was only 30%, the gap was large. And then in 15 and 16, the gap between the targeted amount and what we were actually getting at that point was large. So even though you may have a smaller percentage, the gap, or a bigger percentage, the gap is different. So we were getting as much as $11 new money on every 100. Currently, because the gap was very small, we don't get as much as we did in those early years. But the really significant piece of this is that LCFF is fully implemented in 18-19. There is no more gap funding, and we go back to a COLA-only environment. That's really significant. We will not see as much new money. Okay, budget considerations. This is historical, the way the budget has been built before me and up until we get to a new strategic plan. These are the things that we're focusing on. We want to keep our programs. We want to continue to do improvements on our schools. Our goal is to reopen the school at some point. We want to maintain a responsible reserve, and we want to continue to increase our relationships with other school districts and our charter schools. Those you can read for yourself are LCAP goals, but those are what drives our funding decisions as far as with respect to most of our general fund. Okay, the assumptions that were used, and we had, someone asked me once, well, what do you mean by assumptions, as far as they thought like, oh, you're just taking something out there. No, what we mean in budgeting terms is these are what we're using when we're making decision points and making calculations. So on the right is what our prior year numbers were. On the left is what our current ones are. It was our adopted budget was based on that, and that's what drives it, at least at this point in the year. Our enrollment, we were estimating 1060. We're actually a little higher than that, so I'll come back to that in a little bit, but that's what the budget was built on. But until we get our P2 later in the year, it would not be prudent to say it's for sure here. Kids could move, kids could come. So it's right there for now. We'll make that adjustment later. And it's really important to note that there's a difference between enrollment and funded ADA. ADA is based on your current year or your prior year, whichever's higher, you settle up at the end of the year. So right now our budget is built on 1025.24. It could be a little bit higher, maybe about 10 kids. Our unduplicated pupil count, that's where we get almost $1,200 per student additional for students that meet the criteria of English learner, foster youth, or low socioeconomic. And that money is targeted for services for those kids.
That additional $1,200 is only for those students that are for the students that are above the threshold minimum.
No,
So
that's
once you get-
concentration.
Oh, okay, that's concentration.
So, and that is I'm glad you asked, because that's such an important concept when we're thinking about this. So every student gets a base amount. Every student who meets the criteria, and it could be one or all three, gets an additional 20% of the base. And that starts from student number 1 on, for
It's the
every student who meets the
concentration
criteria.
Apply the margin.
Concentration is when we have 55% students who meet that criteria, and then it's from, like, you know, if it were 100 kids, student 56 on.
Right. Okay.
And that's really important because, and it's a 3-year rolling average. So right now, and for the last few years, we're about at 53. We're so close to being able to capture even a little bit of those funds, but we're not there. So it's important. A lot of the times our kids are here, so we've been working hard to make sure that every student that can be counted is. We have included the one-time funding. At adopted budget, they had projected $344 per ADA. It was actually decreased down to $184, but they made some other adjustments made up for it. Our charter revenues are still calculated at 3% for oversight. It's important to note, this is a really big thing for us, is that our charter revenue was reduced compared to prior year, and we'll see that in a little bit later. But it's because of the closures at the Einstein schools, Shasta decisions, and then we don't know yet. We have, I think, 6 renewals this year. So we have to be careful and make sure that we're being prudent, because we may or may not in the out years be able to count that. So we want to make sure. And then I have not transferred anything into other funds at this point for any capital improvement projects, because we haven't got that direction. So, okay. Okay, this is the summary of lots of pages. Adopted budget compared to first interim. In total revenues, we actually have a little bit more in revenue. We also have a little bit more in expenses. The net effect and the net impact on the budget is our expected ending fund balance is about $51,000 less than it was at adopted budget. So these are our revenue summaries. Again, you can look at them for yourself. In LCFF, we have just a little bit more. We have a little bit less in other state. In local revenue, and that is where our charter oversight fees would fall. We actually have a little, a little bit more. And the reason is because there was one of our charters, iLead being one of them, we weren't exactly certain if we were going to be able to renew, so we actually were able to include that in now. The points of interest on the bullets in particular, again, I already mentioned it, is that there was some decreased revenue. If you look down on the right, compared to last year, because of the changes, and even between adopted budget, because we have some issues that we're aware of with a few of them that we need to make sure that those are adjusted. So our charter revenue changes.
Lynn?
Yeah.
Just 1 second. Mr. President, I make the motion that we add 45 minutes to.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the agenda, that should be more sufficient.
Yeah, what I was going to suggest, just so I make sure we get done, I was going to suggest an hour and a half, knowing it won't take anywhere near that, but we have got to get our business done. So, would you modify your motion?
To an hour?
Hour and a half. Okay, we're going to get our business done, but it won't take that long, folks. I do not want to go home without us getting our work done.
It's limited.
What is the limit?
45 minutes, to be honest with you.
That's the limit? Okay, we're going to have to.
That's why I was doing the maximum.
Okay, so
I think it's more than enough, Mr. President.
I suspect it probably is, but with this group, you never know. Okay, so I'll take that motion. Somebody want to second it?
Second.
Okay, call question?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
That's unanimous? Okay, we're extending for 45 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, So again, the point is, if you look down at the table at the far bottom right, you can see estimated actuals last year. Our revenues from charter schools was $4.2 million, and adopted budget based on what we knew for their projected ADA, it was 3.3. We have a little bit of an increase at 3.6 million, but we'll come back to that and we'll show the multi-year. Next slide. In our expenditures, you can see that we had some increases and some decreases in what their impact on the budget is. The ultimate, the changes that really occurred with respect to expenses is certificated salaries were slightly less than we had anticipated because of the new hires that we had, and we also chose not to rehire the counselor position. So there's a slight decrease in that. Also, some of the reorganization that we had with leadership. Classified salaries went up a little bit for 2 reasons. One, because of the new hires, and then also because after adopted budget, we reached settlement with CSEA. So that's reflected in first interim. We also have an increase in the benefits. That's 2 reasons. One, our STRS and PERS is going up, but it also is due to the fact that we reached settlement with our teachers union, and that's where they chose to ask, and we agreed.
Portion though going up.
I'm sorry?
The STRS going up.
Yes.
That was already in the budget? Did
That
it
was
go
in the
up
budget
more than
already.
we expected?
No, no,
Okay,
not
so
for
then this-
STRS and PERS,
Okay,
but
so
what
then
did
this
change?
differential
Yes.
is the settlement with the teachers. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then a few new hires, because that includes also the classified new hires, and we did have a few new hires
Thank you.
from kids moving in. Services increased a bit because of consultants that, we had brought to a few of them, and then also because some of our agreements and settlements that we had. And then the planned actions, those were already in the budget, but I just want to make sure that we're constantly reminding the public that really with the general fund, our actions are related to what happens in LCAP and the priorities that the community and board sets. Okay. Here's where the really good stuff is our MYP. This is where we're talking about what's really required. So really the part I would like you guys to look at is the ending fund balance, which is the yellow line across. We're in good shape. We are in good shape. The next thing I want us to pay attention to is the orange line down below that, where it's our revolving cash and our assigned amounts. Assigned amounts are things that where we think that something may happen. They're not actually expenses yet. They're not something that's guaranteed, but we do have to set it aside. That's primarily related to our charter funds, where we know that there could be some potential volatility. The ADA goes up and down with our charters, and so we do budget based on what the prior year was, and then if they give us information that they're gonna have more students or less students, we have one of our charters that projected about 2,000 students, and I recently got notification from them they anticipate their ADA to be only 661. So what that is that's an assignment of if anything changes, so it's basically non-spendable money at this point.
So you said that one of our charters said that they anticipated 2,000, and then when the reports came in, they were only at 600?
Last year, their enrollment was a little over 2,000, and what they said is that they anticipate their enrollment dropping to 661 students. So that's the kind of volatility that we're dealing with, and why I have to be really careful. So
I have a comment there. You can't speculate on this, but that would almost seem like somebody's got a better interest rate, so I can shift 1,200 kids over here instead of listening to Pfalzgraf's questions.
possibly.
Volatility, measurability. I think though that the more this gets away from people coming in like you're our last chance, I think we're seeing a lot of measurability where it's like things are starting to stabilize, everybody knows the rules. And this picture is actually looking better with the stability of the charters than I expected it would a year and a half.
Yeah, I mean, the flip side is that we do have some charters that are doing really responsible. Hybrid is doing a great job, so there's,
I would like to thank Mr. Jorgenson for retiring because that seems to have an impact on the certificate.
I didn't think I was making that much money, I wouldn't have retired.
We're down to 40 minutes.
Yeah, so So the bottom line is that, and the other thing I do want to point out is that we use a 4% reserve, even though legally we're above the 1,000 students. We're so close to the 1,000 that if we dropped because of illness or kids moving, we'd instantly have to come up with that money. So to be prudent, we do actually keep at least a 4% reserve. Looking along the years, though, you can see because of the volatility, if that were to continue, if the ADA and others didn't increase to make up for some of our potential losses.
I don't know if this is the time to ask, but do we have any money in the line? Are we looking at any textbook adoptions coming up in the next year or two? We have NGSS and we have social studies.
I do have.
And I'm sure, like everyone, I don't know the last time everyone got some science or
There are funds put into one of the years. I think it's for next year. I'd have to go back and look which one of the multi-years it is that there are funds put aside for purchase of either social studies or science, most likely.
Because I mean, some of our kids think George W. Bush was the last president that we had. So.
Yeah, there are funds in there for that. So again, those are assigned funds. They may get freed up at some point, but right now, just to make 7,000 at the end of the year, based on an estimate of 50,000 of income this year. And then Fund 40 is our reserve for capital outlay. We actually, when we did first interim, we were hoping at that point in time that the bond would pass and we would be for sure moving forward with this school. Some of Fund 40 will be used for a little bit of some of the change orders that were up at Vasquez. Other than that, I truly don't believe that it's going to be that low, but we had thought we would actually spend those funds on this school as well as Vasquez. We probably will not end up with a balance as low as that at the end of the year at first interim, now that we know that we probably are not doing major stuff at this school. So, but a little bit of it will be used for the overages at, and the change orders.
What I hear you saying is, since the bond didn't pass and we can't fix the school, we probably won't dump a significant amount of that money into something we can't finish. Right.
Correct. So it'll be held there.
Gone, and the school's still not open.
Yeah.
And it's not there in case we should need it, and that makes sense. I mean,
Yeah. So we'll just hold it.
Or not. Okay.
It'll probably be closer to, you know, but when this was prepared, and you can't go back and change it at the last minute, so it'll probably have closer to about $400,000 left is what we project at this point. But what we thought when we prepared this was that. So Fund 40 is where we will be saving for major projects. So big picture on this is that when the budget was built and when we left it, until we get to P2, we were in a declining enrollment pattern. We actually did see an increase from recapturing some of our students that were attending Einstein School. We may see an increase of maybe around 11 ADA. After that, we actually, unless we capture more students or more kids move in, we will actually possibly go back into a declining enrollment pattern. But for this year at P2, we could go up a little bit. STIRS and PERS continue to go up, and those are budgeted. Student housing needs, we still have that need. We still want to open the school, so we do have a need for more funds. Depletion of fiscal resources in the other areas will continue to diminish our ability to borrow from ourselves for cash flow purposes, so we need to keep our reserve as high as we can and still be fair. You know, 1 month of, well, a 4% reserve is about 2 weeks of salary and benefits. So and when we think about that, 8% is, you know, a month, you know, so just as far as what we have for stability and also to be able to borrow from ourselves, we need to make sure we have a reasonable reserve.
At a burn rate of 8% for 1 month, what I hear you saying is you don't want to end up having to borrow money for cash flow reasons, because that in and of itself costs money, and then you have less to spend on everything else.
Right, so we want to try and keep, I think the board, what I saw in a policy was the board prefers to have about a 10% reserve. You know, so as we look in the out years, we want to make sure that we can kind of make a goal of rebuilding that. So we are, the good news is though, is that we do at this point project a positive certification, and that's what I'm presenting to you, is our ability that at this point we believe we have positive certification and will maintain so. Any questions?
Yeah, well done.
I just want to make one comment. The budget with the charter piece, with the authorization of 15 charter schools, is really complicated. When you look at one budget cycle, so I just want to compliment Lynn, Ms. David for not just the presentation, but really she educates staff constantly on the budget, makes us aware of what's, and I don't have to worry, it's the biggest worry for a superintendent. One of the biggest worries is, am I going to end up in the red someday? And so I rest assured, Lynn, looking over our finances and her expertise in that area, it's really a good place to be for the district.
Yeah, and I forgot about this, but this is just next step so people know what's coming with the budget. The green is things that, because already in like a month, we're gonna see the governor's budget release. So all of that is stuff that's related to building next year's budget. Our next thing you'll see related to this year's budget is second interim in March.
Lynn, thank you so much for such a professional report, and my hat is just off to you for a level of excellence and professionalism you've brought to our finances, and just you continue to impress me, and just so that we're indebted to your work. Thank you.
Anything else? I'm going to call the question. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the first interim report has been accepted.
Thank you.
All right, and, okay, we've got half an hour. Okay, item 13.07, Acton Agua Dulce Teachers Association proposal for 2018-2019 negotiations for collective bargaining agreement. This is often referred to as sunshine. Okay, do I have, I'm taking a motion to open this. That's right? Oh, it's an action, so.
Yes,
okay, we need a motion first, sorry. I'm rusty, I need a motion, folks.
So, I'll second Tim's motion.
Okay, I got Kelly as the motioner.
Okay, then.
And I'll get Ed as the
second.
second. Tim, you can get the next one. Okay, Mr. Ken.
So, the Teachers Association has Sunshine, which is really the public notification that you want to bargain on certain articles of the contract. In this case, they have proposed that we open up the entire contract for the next 3-year period, from July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2021, and so for the board. That's what you're approving, the public notification
Of that sunshine. Okay, so is there any question? Okay,
Thank
so
you.
let's call the question, the acknowledgement of the sunshine notification. Call the question?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that's a 5-0-0. Thank you.
I'm used to saying 4.
13.08. Memorandum of Understanding between the California School Employees Association and its Acton Agua Dulce Chapter number 473 and the Acton Agua Dulce Unified School District. Can somebody make a motion?
So moved.
Okay, I'm going to give that to Mr. Jorgensen.
Yes, and I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. King.
So essentially, it's the same as the prior one, the difference being that this one is a joint communique, so you'll notice that CSEA and the district have signed off on this memorandum of understanding, which again is to open up the entire contract from July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2021 for the class bargaining.
So it's another 2 year, we're doing the whole contract.
3 years. 3 years. We're already into year 1.
Okay.
All right. Okay, thank you. Call the question?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0-0. Okay, future agenda items. Generally, we have on there student discipline, and I think we heard a little bit about that in the PBIS discussion, but it's on there. Compass Charter renewal petition, we just received that. Facility maintenance plan, I think this is something that Mr. Pfalzgraf would like us to address at some point. And of course, we started a board governance workshop so that we could maybe work better together. And we had the first session, but we put it on ice because we didn't know who the board would be. So at some point, we'll probably resume that process.
Yeah, so I got some dates for you to talk about.
Okay.
So, student discipline, we don't anticipate any at this time, so that's a non-issue. In regards to Compass Charter renewal, the public hearing would be January 10th, and then the vote would be on January 24th. For the facility maintenance plan, there is an upcoming facilities seminar that we'll be sending Ernesto Mora to. Possibly Ms. David will be joining him, but that's kind of a critical piece towards the training of Mr. Mora, and that it would be a valuable time. So in order for him to go to that, put together a solid plan, Ms. David, we anticipate February, setting a date in February for the facilities plan to be delivered by Ms. David. For the board governance workshop, Dennis Smith shared 2 dates. So it was January 12th and January 19th. No? No. Okay. And so the 19th is a 3-day weekend because I believe that's Martin Luther King weekend. So I'm thinking perhaps that's not a good one, January 19th. If January 12th works, we could do that. If you want to do the 19th, I don't mind.
This is a Saturday?
Those are both Saturdays. And if you want to look out farther, we can do that too. Those are just the 2 dates you gave.
Are you
I'm
guys,
actually working on the 19th.
okay, are you guys prepared to check your calendars tonight regarding the 12th?
Yes, I'm looking.
Okay, let me check mine too. You don't? Okay, well maybe we'll call it tentative pending your,
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
It'd be obviously good.
Pending on the 12th, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about the 12th, for the rest of us.
I'm good for it, well.
And my thought is, if you're all okay with it, do the same kind of time frame, sort of a 8:30 to 11:30-ish time frame.
I can do the 12th too. So let's say tentatively the 12th, and I guess the pending action is.
I'll get my calendar.
Oh, you can do it right now? Oh, wow. She's technologically savvy. I design the stuff, I just don't use it. We're well within our time limit. Let's see if we can, since the 12th isn't that far away.
Just go ahead and call it.
We're gonna call it the 12th.
Okay.
All right, so everybody, January 12th, approximately you said 8 a.m.?
Whatever the board.
8:30.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's what I'm gonna put in my calendar. All right, item 15 is our upcoming. Yes.
There was I asked about a high-speed rail TAC presentation, if that's necessary, where somebody comes in and basically answers questions about tailings. I don't want to turn this into an emotional fiasco about ground wells and things like that, but if the event comes in where somebody can kind of brief and keep everybody up, I want to make sure that we don't lose any traction. It sounds like the district's position, concerns about noise, concerns about tailings, that type of thing, were expressed. We need to make sure that we don't find ourselves with the town council wondering what our position is and whether we're firm on that or not.
Gotcha.
So I would just I would ask that that be carried as it's appropriate until it drops off.
Okay, so you're talking about a report from staff, continued report, or?
No, you just open it up, you would invite members of the Acton Town Council.
Got it.
Probably Jackie to come in and update us as necessary when the time comes. Staff would make that decision, but I'd like to see that carried, because if somebody in the community is looking at this and going, the school district's position is unknown, no, it's carried on the agenda, just like the safety report.
She's good, she's an expert in that, so.
All right, okay. So let's talk about the 12th. If we were to start at 8:30, you figure we're done at 11?
No later than 11:30.
Can we do 8 to 11?
Whatever the board would like.
I'm okay with 8,
Yeah, right.
because she's got a hard stop. Okay, can you,
I'm good with whatever you guys.
okay, we're gonna do 8 through 11, because the 19th doesn't work, and then if we don't pick one of those 2 days, then it's a whole nother do loop, because we gotta go talk to, the availability consultant. No, you're fine. And then the next month, there'll be the, President's Day weekend in there, so it'll end up being March. So, okay, 8 to 11, January 12th. Thank you, everybody, for the flexibility. On the 5th, on the calendar then, it's, our next meeting is January 10th because of the holiday. And then, in January, we'll be back to 2 meetings per month, 10th and 24th.
And closed session, there is an item to be reported out. And I will read that for you. All right. In closed session, the board took action and voted unanimously to support the superintendent's recommendation on student discipline matter number 5000676. Additionally, the board took action and voted unanimously in closed session to support the superintendent's recommendation on student discipline matter number 1001974. All right, so that is our report out. All right, and so now, okay, do I have a motion to approve my report out?
Yes, I move to approve the report the way you said.
Thank you. Second. Thank you, Kelly. Call the question?
Aye.
Aye, that's a 5-0-0. And now we're at adjournment. And I'm going to call the time 10:26. Thank you, Ed. And do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second. Ed Porter and TJ. Call the question?
Aye. Great job, Mike.
No, thank you. And thank you, folks, for sticking with us.